State of State, we got your Nittany Lion update. It's a football discussion with Tom and Justin, so kick back and press play.
With former Penn State and NFL defensive back Justin King, I'm Tom Hannifan. This is State of State. This podcast is presented by BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline is every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on BetOnline's $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the games are over, head to the online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of over 150 slots games. Head to betonline.ag today to get in on the action. State of State is presented by BetOnline. The game starts here. State of State is proud to partner with Illumination Brewing for another season of crafting State IPA, the perfect tailgate and game day beer for Penn State football fans. State IPA is available now at your local beer distributor, grocery store, plus select bars and restaurants. Visit illuminationbrewing.com/beer/state-IPA to learn more. Must be 21 years or older to purchase. Please drink responsibly. Also, State of State is a proud supporter of Blue White Outfitters. Blue White Outfitters was created as a retail shop meant to highlight the confidence, competitiveness, and fearlessness of the elite athletes found throughout the history of Penn State University. Check out their Lockdown U and Lawn Boys merchandise today, and keep an eye out for State of State apparel coming soon. All sales from Blue White Outfitters directly benefit Penn State student athletes. Visit www.bluewhiteoutfitters.com today. Hi, everyone, and welcome to State of State. Penn State takes care of business against Kent State. Yes, Penn State did break the all-time record for the most yards from scrimmage in a single game in Nittany Lion football history. So some history being made, but a lot of different things that we can take away from this game that are some positives for Penn State now that they are through their non-conference schedule, and Big Ten play starts next week. Night game against the undefeated, currently ranked number 24 Illini from Illinois. So very excited about that. Like, comment, subscribe, rate us, turn on notifications. As always, you can get at us on social media at State of State Pod. Hop in the comments section. We are live right now on our YouTube channel, so get in the comments section. Please send us your questions, thoughts, concerns, worries, all that sort of stuff. We will definitely address it. And if you haven't done so already, you can become a member of this YouTube channel for just 99 cents a month and get all upcoming episodes of State of State ad-free. You can hit the join button on our home channel, or you can follow the link in the description of this podcast. Justin, not much of a surprise in this game. I know going into the Bowling Green game, we said something similar. So coming into this game, I was going to bite my tongue and just kind of see how this thing went. But man, Penn State looked dominant the way that Penn State fans expected to. They covered the spread, which was minus 48.5, according to BetOnline, scored 56 points. So a lot of people are going to be happy about that. What were you happy about watching this game?
I think the steady increase of production throughout the game, right? You start off a little slow, like, okay, first quarter, you've seen the other scores from the previous weeks, whether it's Tennessee putting up 35 points in the first half and just not even questioning the explosiveness, but like, okay, are we behind the 8 ball against the team? We're just talking about scoring points. As they continue to stick to the script, their identity, whether it's running the football, getting different ways to run the football, getting their their personnel involved. We look at Tyler Warren with the Wildcat and different things of that situation, and then come out with 59 points at the end of the day, breaking different records. And so it's like, again, more than one way to skin a cat, and just calling on those explosive plays when you wanted to. So those are the things that you wanted to see. Obviously, the defense has a shutout. I mean, they executed the way they wanted to, and I like the methodical approach, almost like a python or anaconda, just choking them out, right? And I think that's essentially what we've seen through the past couple of weeks of how they're going to be playing this football game, or their identity moving forward.
And listen, it's been a rough start to the season for this Kent State team that are now 0-4. I think it was a lot of conversation last week. They lost to Tennessee by a score of 71-0. Our good buddy from statecollege.com, Mike Poorman, was on X as this game was going on and said against Kent State last week, Tennessee had scored 37 points in the first quarter, 65 points in the first half, 71 overall. Penn State just kind of inverted that. I agree, slow start. And you and I were talking about this before we came on. I can't remember the last time I saw a James Franklin offense that had quick starts in the first quarter, in the second quarter, and especially against an opponent like this. You go into the half, 28-0, and you really start to pile up the points there in the back half in the second quarter. Yeah, I can understand how Penn State fans would be like, why didn't we do this from Jump Street? Why wasn't this just a hot knife through butter? Well, it happened. It just happened at a different time than you expected it to. So what's the difference in my mind?
I mean, you like to see that they come out and with the explosive play in the second half, right? You get up. I mean, I forget what the score was at the end of the first half, but it was 28
0 28-0. Yeah.
20-0. But come out with a quick strike, right? So it's just showing that there's different ways that we can attack people, especially from the offense side of football. Zane Durant always continues to flash throughout the season, getting through and creating pressure in the backfield. And again, we were just from a personnel standpoint, we outmatched them. So you expect that, but they played essentially a pretty clean game throughout the time. So, I mean, from that, it's just like, all right, everyone's healthy. Let's move on to the next week.
Thank you to Matt in the comment section. This is my favorite post-game show. Maddie, we appreciate you very much. Chris from Penn State hopping in here. Overreaction or underreaction? Penn State is yet to fix their first half kinks. Granted, it's West Virginia and a couple MAC teams, but Big Ten begins next week with Illinois. I don't think we're ready for it. We were just talking about the first half stuff there. So, I mean, I don't lose too much sleep over that. I think it's kind of clear what Penn State has been under James Franklin offensively. This is not consistently year after year a team that comes out and just scores a bunch of points in the first quarter and second quarter and then tries to play the possession game in the second half. The idea is to wear on you, and that's very clear, especially from the way this offense is constructed. But the comment of, I don't think we're ready for Illinois next week, I disagree. Justin, what do you think?
I mean, I disagree with that statement. It's the first week of Big Ten play. I think they're ready to see what we got, and I mean, I think we're ready to play them. Right? It's just dependent on we have an identity set, different ways of scoring points, playing some pretty sound defense. I mean, I don't know who said that, like what they expected, or to think that we're not ready for it. But I definitely think we're ready for next week in the sense of moving forward. We're seeing, again, two coordinators for the first three games establishing their identity and the team to truly adopt that. And I think from today, when I said on Wednesday about being process oriented, I feel like today was that process oriented type of win where you're just like, hey, we're going to continue to do this process. Take it here, first downs, right? Breaking the records on top of the points, but for first downs. So just being efficient and continuously moving the sticks. That's always a goal of an offensive coordinator, to continue to keep the defense on the field and then being able to strike when you need to. So it wasn't just a methodical approach the whole time. There were explosive plays mixed in there and nice yardage per clip on the run game. And again, I think we're ready for Big Ten play. I don't know where we get that from. So
I think Illinois getting the win in overtime last night at Nebraska, hostile environment, good Nebraska team, that certainly inspired even more confidence in what Illinois is capable of. Altmaier throwing 4 touchdowns was something that was certainly impressive. So I think Illinois is going to be a test for Penn State. But the things that I saw that were problems for Nebraska and other teams against Illinois, I think Nebraska was held to maybe 3 yards rushing per carry, and then also 9 penalties for Nebraska in that game. That's something eerily similar to what Penn State's been doing for the last 3 games. And it was something that unfortunately continued to be a problem here against Kent State. I do want to talk more about Illinois, and I don't want to completely look past this Kent State game. I think there's a lot of little things we can dissect and analyze. So I'll get to Illinois. Sure. Let's talk about the penalties, because the penalties were something like week 1, week 2. You understand it. You're coming off of the off-season training camp. Like, that takes time to get into that flow where you're executing on both sides of the ball. A lot of these penalties have been pre-snap on the offensive side. Okay, so you get at West Virginia on the road. You can excuse some things there. Road game, first game of the year. Second game of the year, Bowling Green kind of surprises you, but you get the victory. Bye week, lesser MAC opponent here against Kent State. This would have been the week that you would have hoped these things would have been cleaned up, and it didn't seem that they were. What do you see in regard to the penalties?
Week 3, I can continue to work through it. I mean, I don't know what else to say besides week 3. I mean, that comes with the territory. Again, you can't. like you can't hope for a perfect game week 2, week 3. You want to look sharp. You want to score 59 points. You want to get your first downs and like you clean up as you go. So from that standpoint, the floor is a lot higher than I guess the penalties would be. I think that's just like a byproduct of the beginning of a season, and just I'm not going to say having new coordinators has anything to do with that. It's just new players getting into the flow of the game and moving your feet. Like when we have penalties, typically it's just a little bad technique from here and there from a different player. But no, I don't even have too many opinions on it. It's just like the third game of the season.
I think part of it, and this is not a lack of ability or focus or anything like that, but you got a lot of new faces on this offensive line. Maybe not brand new to the program, but new to starting.
Right. No, I mean, that's another point, right? We were just talking about that level of competitive stamina, whether you're used to just doing practice squad or getting away with things and not being called, and now you're in a game. It's like, oh, I'm getting called for that. So there's a learning curve that happens when you get into real gameplay. And I think that's all we're witnessing when we're just guys moving around to different positions. And there's another thing about having mental error penalties versus aggressive penalties. Like I'm okay with aggressive penalties. I almost don't even count those because you don't want to tell your guys, hey, watch out for this holding, watch out for pass interference. No, you don't want to ever make them play in an apprehensive or, second guessing their initial instincts and doing that. And sometimes when you're physical and doing those different type of things, yes, you don't want to have penalties, but some of the best teams have penalties for, I'm not going to say unsportsmanlike conduct, but they touch that line of some of the, physical penalties that come with the game. So, I mean, again, not too much to fret, just week 3.
Staying with the offensive line, I still have concerns about pass protection. Drew Aller was running around a lot, and there were certain elements. There was, I forget at what point it occurred in the first half, but there was, I think, a 6-man defensive line front, and then you got a corner blitz, and they dropped 3 from the defensive line into coverage. They ran 3 defensive linemen forward, running a stunt, and then you got the corner blitz. So you had very good play design altogether by Penn State, but you only sent 4, you dropped 3 guys, and it really threw off Penn State's offensive line. I don't even know what the question is, but I'm worried about it.
I mean, people throw out different defenses and things like that. So it's like, again, you got to see things, get your fact patterns down, used to seeing different looks. Like again, that comes with experience, right? I just can't fret too much over a Kent State game when those things come up because, I don't want to dig too much into it. I mean, I think it's something that once they see it, they can easily correct.
I see your point, but it's if it were localized to this game, I'd understand it. But it's been symptomatic, and that we've seen it now for 3 games where it's like Drew's running around a lot, trying to buy time in the pocket, and I would say the Penn State passing game had more struggles against zone today than I was expecting them to deal with. Was Kent State doing anything from what you saw that was like, oh, okay, they threw some different wrinkles out there. They got some dudes that made this a little bit more difficult.
No. I mean, Drew was 17 for 21, 309 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like, I mean,
I understand. No,
just saying running like I know what you're saying, like running around and doing the different things of that nature. If they're dropping people and it's just like you have to buy time to have someone open. That again, that's just I guess normal when you're dropping more into coverage, right? Like not that you're going to get pressure, but it's going to take longer for people to get open. And so like being patient and making the right throw, I think that's what he exhibited today versus doing some knucklehead stuff against a lesser opponent, right? I think the Bro Beulah interception was the careless one, right? It was a little bit of a trickery where he throws it in the middle of the line, a little fluky where he didn't see the lineman. You didn't see the defender, so like that's the one.
I don't blame him.
I mean, but that's the right. But that's the one that I'd be like, you can kind of have that one back. But from Drew's standpoint, just the correlation of dropping defensive linemen, I just think that just buys more time for him to have to find someone that's open.
I think Drew continues to be the engine for this entire offense. And as much as we have heard from Andy Kotelnicki that this is based on the running game, and it certainly was in this game. Hats off to everybody that got involved from a rushing standpoint. Nick Singleton, 11 for 81, averaged 7.4. good Lord. He came in averaging 9 in this game. It was just crazy. Katron Allen, 11 for 66. He averaged 6. Bo Perbula, 5 for 45 and a touchdown. He averaged 9. Cam Wallace, scary injury there at the tail end of the fourth quarter. 9 carries for 39 yards in his first career touchdown. 4.3 on the ground. Drew Auer rushed for that touchdown there at the end of the second quarter. Quentin Martin got involved. Tyler Warren got involved. Liam Clifford got involved. Like, you saw Penn State put a fair amount on tape in the rushing attack that I wouldn't necessarily describe as the vanilla stuff that we've heard, in that you saw a lot of different formations. You saw them put Tyler Warren in the Wildcat and him fake the run or show the run and then throw the pass or a touchdown pass. There were a lot of different formations that Andy Kotelnicki put on tape that part of me as a broadcaster was like, oh, I was interested to see him put that on tape in September against a non-conference opponent the week before you play Illinois. In your experience, is that setting up for Illinois or is that setting up for like November?
Again, I think you got to look at his whole offensive system as like a tree, and we're just still building out the root of it. And then once you start spreading, like building off with the different branches and leaves, when you start getting the Big Ten play with the offenses and what the defenses are giving you, when there's different role coverages, you have more of a stylistic matchup because the talent is at the same thing. I think these first 3 games, they're trying to see how they're executing, not necessarily like game planning against a defense, a linebacker from Bowling Green or somebody from Kent State. That's what's going to happen when we start playing Ohio State, Michigan, USC. It's like, okay, you got a Will Johnson type of corner. This is how we have to attack this, to isolate these different type of people. And I think that's when you start to see the creativity of the offense. Right now, you're just establishing that foundation of what we are and how we're going. And right now, what they've shown, if I'm prepping from a defense in the first 3 weeks, it's a lot to prepare for, right? Like, it's like, okay, they run the ball this way. This is how they throw. They can do explosives in many different ways. They can do explosives to Trey Wallace, to Evans. They had the tight end. They had the 2 running backs, and they have a quarterback that can make all the throws. He can actually, he's lost weight and can move. I just named 5-6 weapons that a defensive has to defend within the packages and how he's presenting them, right? Because they're still coming out in a very basic way, getting edges, running a very efficient manner. So again, I think right now you're just thinking of like the beginning plot of a play where you're just kind of introducing all the characters to the rest of the Big Ten, because you got to remember, we got some influx of teams that are coming in and are just going to try to, you don't want to, a key thing that coordinators sometimes do is they talk about chasing ghosts. And when you want an offensive coordinator, you want to put that thought in their mind of like, what can we do with these different personnel and looks? So I think right now, I think we're just laying the foundation.
Makes total sense. Tyler Warren, I don't know if you can have the argument about if he is or not the best tight end in America. I think it's pretty clear. I mean, Sean Clifford tweeted out Tyler Warren for Heisman, and that made me laugh. But like, Tyler Warren, 5 catches for 50 yards, 1 touchdown, 7 targets, 18 yards after the catch, along as 16 there. He ran once for 16 yards. I talked about that Wildcat package with him, and then 1-for-1 passing for a 17-yard touchdown to Nick Singleton. The experience, having played as a high school quarterback, is so valuable to be able to utilize that package. But I mean, he is a killer in the seams. And that was something Penn State exploited a lot during this game. Liam Clifford, Julian Fleming, a lot of different players, Amari Evans as well. That skinny post, that seam route, however it is you want to call it, even just a straight go route in between the safeties. Penn State had a lot of success there, and they've continued to have success there the past couple of weeks that we've seen every game they've played in this year. But with Tyler Warren, he's a total package. And like, I don't want to pat myself on the back too much, Justin, but I love to do that. This guy was saying in the summer, Tyler Warren should be the #1 passing threat within this offense. And it's not that Trey Wallace can't be, but Tyler Warren has already proven very quickly that he can be.
Yes, and I think that's what he's showing up, right? I think he's a primetime player that we always were expecting. I think I heard during the game, the announcer mentioned Andy Kotelnicki saying something of like, his system is his personnel, his system is his players. And I think he showed that today, where it's like, okay, we have a dynamic tight end. How can we use them and show these different matchups? Like, all right, we're playing against Kent State. Like, let's put them in Wildcat, where we have a 260-pound guy running the football that we know that's explosive and move the ball that way, or establish that identity of physicality at the line of scrimmage and how we run the football. I mean, once you do that, it's just like the jab in boxing, and you're just waiting for that knockout punch. But when you can establish that jab, it might not be the most entertaining all the time, but like to the purists it is. But when they get that knockout punch, everybody's like excited, and it's a lot, more efficient or effective when that jab has been established.
As a defensive player, and I was mentioning this before, like Kodal Nicky putting this on tape now, you got Illinois next week. As a defensive player that's watching tape and you see, oh, they haven't put Warren in the Wildcat until week 3 or week 4, game 3. And they did it in a couple different ways, and that it was kind of a read option. He did a carry at first, and then he threw out to the flat, nice little ball to Nick Singleton. What does that open up in terms of the things that a defender has to prep for during the week? So much of what Kodal Nicky does is pre-snap motion, making you think before the ball is actually snapped.
Well, the question is can Tyler Warren throw, right? That's where it gets real tricky. If he can really toss the ball, whether it's like a 10, 15-yard pass, defenders have to be on their toes, right? I mean, but when you see him, probably the key is like a think run, all those good things. But he's just a bigger body, and that's, I guess, what they're banking on, especially when you're playing opponents of that nature. But they have the ability to do that, because who says that can't be Nick Singleton? Who says that can't be someone else? So, like, again, we saw Bubba Bula come in there and run different packages that are similar to a Wildcat or even throw the football. So all these different type of things, it's more about the looks and the exchange of the people. So the fact that you can exchange another person, in my brain, it's like, okay, that's like 15 different plays that you have to essentially prepare for. When they have a tight end or someone that's different at the quarterback position, we can't just bank on check to a defense that's just going to stop the run. It's like, hey, we got to, who is that player back there? Okay, what has that player done? Okay, Bubba Bula, okay, it's Tyler Warren. It keeps you on your toes. I mean, besides that, I think it's, again, into that philosophy of building that root of his offensive scheme moving forward.
With the wide receivers, Omari Evans, very nice game. 4 catches, 116 yards, a touchdown on 4 targets. Liam Clifford finally gets his first receptions of the year, gets his first touchdown of the year, 3 for 64 and a touchdown on 3 targets. Trey Wallace, 3 for 29 on 5 targets. Julian Fleming getting 2 catches for 60 yards, and especially, I believe Jake Butt on commentary referred to it as a dig route. It looked like kind of like a post that he improvised or something like that, but made a play. And it was like, great. Like, we've been looking forward to seeing this. And Clifford, I like seeing him get involved in a jet sweep. It just felt diverse. And sorry, not to cut you off. Go ahead.
No. I thought you were down. And I was just saying, like, it was very diverse in the sense of how many people touched the football and scored touchdowns, right? I want to say it was like 6 or 7 guys that scored touchdowns, and just being efficient and having those different weapons. So yes, it was very diverse approach from that offense.
Considering we saw Trey Wallace go off against West Virginia, and it's been a little quiet since, any concern, or just kind of like, you know what, this is what we had to work with this week. He'll find his other times to eat.
Put as many threats on film as possible so the defense has to prepare for it.
Love that. Late in the third quarter, you were still seeing Nick Singleton out there. You were still seeing Katron Allen out there. Cam Wallace, I sincerely hope whatever injury he sustained was not significant, because the little that we got to see and have gotten to see thus far this season, he looks the part, man. Like, he looks like he has so much ability. It was nice to see Quentin Martin Jr. get in there, but Cam Wallace, for how young he is, physically, he looks the part already. What did you see from Wallace and Martin in the limited snaps that they got?
I mean, you just like to see them get some action, right? Some live reps to where they can start recognizing some fact patterns. So when they get into the Big Ten play, it's not too big for them. I think these type of games where you're building depth throughout the whole roster is extremely critical as you get deeper into the season. We know that football is 100% injury rate, and guys are going to have to play. And so the more that they're comfortable with the playbook and the live bullets, the better everyone is.
Thank you to Lisa in the comment section here. Thanks, Tom and Justin, for doing this for another year. Love the show. We appreciate you guys very much. If you guys have any questions or anything, hop in the comment section here. We're going to be here for a minute. One thing I did want to talk about coming into this game, and it's just, we're talking about an injury there with Cam Wallace. It was announced Wednesday night, as we were expecting, that KJ Winston is out long-term with an injury. James Franklin making that announcement. KJ was on the sideline for this game. Very encouraging that he was with his teammates. It's still, as James Franklin and the staff typically do, they don't release a lot of information. So we sincerely hope to see him back at some point in the future. But you did see a lot of different corners and safeties rotating in there. For some reason, the commentary team for the Big Ten Network thought Dewan Lane was pronounced Deshaun. Hats off to Brooke Fletcher from within the Believe Podcast Network, who I've done shows with in the past. I think she was the only one of the three that got it right. So I appreciate Brooke. Thought she did a great job. But everybody else, I was like, okay, it's Dewan Lane, Day-Day, as James Franklin calls him. Dewan got in there a good amount. Elliott Washington, the second, was in there a good amount. Cam Miller was rotating in there at safety. Saw Zion Tracy, Audavian Collins. Now, granted, you're sitting there being like, yeah, it's Kent State. You should see all these guys. But you were seeing those guys in the first half. You were seeing them rotate in consistently. From what you saw, and it feels very difficult to say, did they make up for the absence of KJ Winston? And you take that into account of the competition and the limited reps. But still, from what you saw from Lockdown U, did you feel like we're going to be okay?
From today, 0 points. I can't say anything bad when you put up 0 points and you're out there making plays. And there weren't any explosive plays given up on defense either, right? They're making tackles around the line of scrimmage, making plays, covering guys on the back end. That's all you can ask for when you do get in the game. I mean, and we had a scoop and score a touchdown on defense. So I think from that point, you take the limited injuries and you move on to the next game and like tack on some experience for those young guys that got a chance to play, like you said, when the real bullets were flying, like in real crunch time, right? When it was 7-0, 14-0, or whatever that might be.
I felt bad for Kent State's quarterbacks. They were down to their third string quarterback after a while. I mean, it's you never want to see injuries happen. So I'm not going to sit here and glorify, oh, Penn State knocked out 2 quarterbacks. Like that's not something I ever want to see. But you did hold Kent State to 2 of 13 passing for 18 yards. That's a 15% completion percentage.
No, it started off rough. I mean, the first one when DDS came around the edge, I was like, ooh. Yeah, this will be a long day, man.
Well, that was the other thing is the ball's in the air. Kobe went to catch it. Kobe King went to catch it.
I got blasted him too.
He hit it. So I'm like, does that qualify as targeting when it's a defensive player trying to catch an interception and the offensive guy helmet to helmet with him? Like Kobe's lucky he doesn't have a concussion.
It was defenseless, but they deemed that it was his shoulder hitting his chest. And then when you look back on it, he just lined him up nicely, but his shoulder hit his chest, and like that recoil made it look like he hit him in the head, but no, he didn't. He was defenseless, but I mean, it's a violent game, man. I get, I kind of get touchy when we get into those split moment plays. The lineman sees the ball in the air, he doesn't know how to judge a receiver or a defensive player.
His head was straight up in the air.
It's an offensive lineman though. It's an offensive lineman that hit him though. Is all I'm saying. Like he's not, and he's just like somebody don't catch the ball. Like so, everybody's survival mode on the football field. So like I unless it's just an egregious, I see this guy coming and put my head down. It takes a lot for me to think that someone's trying to be malicious.
No, I agree with you. Defensive line played well, and again, considering the competition, you had an expectation that they would do that. Denai Dennis Sutton, very good game. Interior of the defensive line was extremely strong during this game. Abdul Carter gets his first sack of the season and looked more disruptive and productive than we've seen him in the first 2 weeks. Not that he hadn't been disruptive. I know a lot of people have been looking to see the big flash plays and more sacks, those sorts of stuff, but he continues to stack positive performance after positive performance. So for everybody out there freaking out about Abdul Carter doesn't look like Micah Parsons just yet, like, give it a minute. Like maybe the end of October, November, you'll see his true form, and you might not even see it this season, guys. So just be patient.
That's all you can ask for.
I felt like the linebacking core, I mean, like it's really hard to look at the defense and say they did anything wrong. I think one thing that was interesting in this game, I'm curious if you had any thoughts on it. Tom Allen was up in the booth for this one, which was a change from the first 2 games. Why do you think that would be a choice?
Try it out. Maybe try it out without any superstitions or thoughts of Kent State messing that up. But no, just probably trying out to see what it's like up in the booth before we, like you said, going into Illinois or a Big Ten play. I think these first 3 games has been like, okay, let's try some different things, put different situations on film, get different perspectives on our play calls, how we approach it, and see what sticks and continue to move that way. So doing that and winning by a large margin and a shutout, kudos.
Really hard to extrapolate anything too critical from a game that was 56-0. So Penn State took their business in the way that you expected.
Got to score 70 in the first half.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's where it's got to be. I love Portman, and I love our Penn State fans. It's like, hey, you covered the spread.
For sure,
man. But looking ahead, and we will do our full game preview for Penn State versus Illinois. That'll be out this Wednesday, as always. Illinois' game against Nebraska, there was already a lot of conversation about Illinois could be a player, not necessarily somebody that's going to win the Big Ten, but somebody that can make a little noise and maybe cause a little chaos along the way. Brett Bielema consistently has a very disciplined, talented football teams, runs the ball well, plays good defense when it comes to the run. So, and it's just a situation where I think the immediacy of that Nebraska win, you're looking at it as like, okay, this could be a little bit more trouble than we expect. Luke Altmaier, a quarterback, seasoned, experienced quarterback. He takes care of the football, 4 touchdowns, and the dreaded Illinois in overtime. I know Penn State fans hear that, and I remember going to that 9 overtime game. That just terrifies me to think about again. But Illinois looks like it's going to be a challenge. From what you've gotten to see out of Illinois and what you've seen now from Penn State, what are some elements of that matchup that you're going to be paying attention to in particular?
Just the evolution of Penn State's offensive defensive identity, continue to move forward. The Big Ten play, they're coming off of a big win against Nebraska. We talked about the emotional highs that you run through and like see how they come into this next game, because I would anticipate somewhat of an emotional letdown and seeing if Penn State can capitalize off of coming out slow this week and going into Big Ten play to see, okay, what's the mentality of our attack plan, right? Just to say like, okay, if we're building the foundation and we're going to go to that second level here and how we're approaching it, we're going to come out with more of an explosive. We're going to establish that jab and the run game and different things of that nature. So just want to see how Illinois comes off of a big win against Nebraska and how we come off of, a pretty convincing win against Kent State.
As long as Penn State takes care of the penalties, and that's judging by the way James Franklin went off on Javen Williams in the second half, I bet you penalties are going to get addressed a lot this week, and you have to be productive rushing the football. That's something that if Illinois can take that away, it can cause problems. Now, we've seen the effort from what Drew Allar and company have done. This is a very balanced offense, but we do know Andy Kotelnicki wants to focus on the run and then branch out from there. So as long as you're able to do those things against Illinois and pressure Altmaier into some bad decisions, or even go as far as to put the game on Altmaier, because this is a guy who averages maybe 10 yards of completion. If you can put him in situations to make mistakes, Penn State can capitalize. And to open up Big Ten play at home, a night game environment, that's the other thing. It's either a 7 or 7:30 p.m. start time. Network, I think, is still TBD, but have fun with all that stuff. But to open up Big Ten play and to knock off a ranked opponent, it's only good for Penn State's resume as we continue to look forward towards the 12-team college football playoff. Every last one of these matters this time of year. Every little last advantage matters this time of year. I want to thank all of you so much for hopping in. This is our first opportunity to do a live podcast this year post-game. We're going to hope to do another one sometime in the future. Fortunately for Justin and I, we have busy schedules, so we will try and do another one in the near future. Joshua, thank you so much. My hair does look fantastic tonight. I appreciate it. Once again, Penn State wins by a score of 56-0 at home against Kent State to round out non-conference play. Now the number 10 Penn State Nittany Lions will be looking ahead to hosting currently number 24 Illinois next weekend at Beaver Stadium. Once again, like, comment, subscribe, rate us, turn on notifications, get at us on social media at State of State Pod. Comment, as always, on our YouTube channel. You guys are great about that. And if you haven't done so already, you can become a member of our YouTube channel for just 99 cents a month, and you can get all upcoming episodes of State of State ad-free. You can hit the join button on our home channel, or you can follow the link in the description of this podcast. Guys, thank you all so much for joining us. Once again, Penn State takes care of business by a score of 56-0 against Kent State. Thank you all so much for joining us. This episode and our entire library of shows is available now on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Also, let us know what you think of the show on social media and check out all of our content on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Search for the handle @StateOfStatePod. State of State is presented by Bet Online and by Blue White Outfitters.